Hey, Paul.
What's up, guys?
What's happening, man?
All good, man.
Yeah, apologies for the lack of a episode last week, but we weren't doing nothing. We were a bit of strategizing going on. So, yeah, hence the lack of a pod. But we were still working.
Yeah, as always. That doesn't stop for us.
Never.
No.
What's happening, Paul?
Yeah, look, excited to be back this week. We got quite a bit of news to chat about. It's been quite a busy week in aviation. And, yeah, this pod ahead of next week, I've got to face up. I'm not going to be here.
Where are you going?
Going down to the coast.
Well, you've got a computer, don't you?
If you're happy, I can fancy myself doing the podcast on the beach with a beer, laptop in hand.
Nothing wrong. nothing wrong with that visual.
Yeah.
I tell you what, it gets to this time of the year where I managed to take a few days off over the Easter break, which was really nice. But just not enough that you actually sort of kick into that sort of mode like we tend to do over December.
Yeah.
It's like it's just long enough to, break the routine, but not long enough where you actually get the resting benefit out of it.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of important. You need this middle of the year sort of break to just sort of re-energize for the sort of push towards the end of the year again.
Yeah.
Can you believe how fast this year has gone already, man?
No, it's nuts, bro.
Yeah.
We sound like real old men when we say that.
Yes.
Time's going so fast.
We got to stop doing that. Anyway, should we jump into the news for this week?
Let's do it.
All right, kicking off some significant issues in the States. You might have seen all the issues with Newark.
What's happening?
So Newark International air traffic controllers, for the second time in a row in as many weeks, lost radar access on Friday morning. This marks the second outage. These radar outages have caused many flight delays and cancellations, leading to frustration amongst passengers. The FAA is actively working to upgrade the outdated systems contributing to these issues. And, they need to do some serious cutting to the amount of flights that are being operated in and out of Newark at the moment to try and improve safety.
Newark is massive. It's you have an outage for half an hour, it's going to affect things for the next couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Is this maybe also to do with I think last or a couple of weeks ago, Trump obviously mentioning he wants to upgrade the ATC system entirely.
Yeah.
So there's maybe a sign that it needs to happen sooner rather than later.
Yeah, no, look, Trump and all the upgrades. You might have seen, can't go unnoticed this week that he's looking to upgrade his ride.
Yeah.
And, yeah, he's been gifted a 747 from Qatar.
I saw that. What? I mean, I saw the headline. What is the full story there?
So, they've basically been looking to replace the current Air Force One. So they were in the market shopping around for one because I don't think Boeing are in the spot now to just sort of dish out a 747 off the line. Yeah. So apparently this one from Qatar is one of four that the Qatari royal family, I think, had purchased a while back. But as someone had said in one of the articles, they realized that they don't have enough space in their garage to park four of these things. So they had it on the market for something ridiculous like $400 million.
Yeah.
Which Trump could probably pay with out of his lunch money.
Well, the Doge money could pay. The savings from Doge could pay for that.
But it sounds like the Qataris actually want to give it to him as a gift.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So he might accept that, but with that, converting it into an Air Force One sort of category aircraft is going to cost probably well over $1 billion anyway.
Yeah, it wouldn't look right to have the president of the States flying around in a bus. It has to be a Boeing, I suppose, and so it's still going to be a 747. I would have thought that maybe they'd wait for the new 777.
Yeah, I don't. There might be a few trust issues there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, I mean, that's obviously been dominating most of the US headlines in terms of news. What else happened across the Atlantic? So we have two separate incidents involving Turkish Airlines. One over Iceland, where a 777 had to descend rapidly, approximately through 8,000 feet. This occurred after the crew made an aggressive response to severe turbulence. The pilot's conflicting control inputs resulted in a dangerous descent, with the aircraft exceeding its maximum speed and triggering multiple warnings.
Can't be fun for the packs.
Not Ayoba. Fortunately, the crew managed to regain control and continued the flight to Istanbul. Some passengers sustained minor injuries upon arrival. A lot of these turbulent...
Yeah, they just continue. Eh?
There's lots of them.
I wouldn't like to be in the back with a knock like that. How people don't get more injured, I don't know. But I wonder if there has been. I remember researching this when we first started talking about these stories, and there's no sort of evidence to suggest that anything has drastically changed upstairs there.
I wonder if it's just sometimes not an overreaction to.
Well, I wonder
sitting
if
in turbulence.
I wonder if it's not just always been happening, but it's just less of a thing to get on social media and go and report the thing, or if there's a genuine sort of change in the upper atmosphere that is causing these hectic turbulence. I mean, there was that terrible one a couple of weeks ago where a young girl got burnt with hot water. That wasn't even too bad. I think they lost like 2,000 feet or something.
Yeah.
She got quite badly burned. So they're not...
Could very well be the wake turbulence from all of Elon Musk's Starlink satellites.
Yeah.
Hazarding a guess.
Well, you make a point. Did they rule out that it's not wake turbulence? I mean, it could. I wouldn't say from the Starlink, but it could be.
Yeah.
Oh.
Who knows? Here in South Africa, we had another flight from Joburg to Cape Town last week, which had to make an unscheduled diversion into Bloem. This due to another unruly passenger.
Yeah, always on SAF. No, there
Always.
was a few on Semi as well. Eh?
Yeah. But we saw some pictures doing the rounds on the interwebs where this fellow was restrained by a fairly large-looking security guard.
I hope they weren't too violent with the man.
I don't know. From what I could see there, it looked like there were some jets maneuvers being applied. But they offloaded him and he's been detained, and luckily this one was handled with a lot less publicity as the one that was in December.
Yeah.
Can you remember that one? What was her name? The
Yeah.
SABC News.
Yeah. Is she still SABC News?
No. She got fired.
She got faxed.
And she's publicly apologized profusely now for...
Yeah, because it's not so fun driving everywhere. Yeah, unruly packs. There's no excuse. It puts everyone on the aircraft at danger. It makes people very nervous being in a confined space. And there's just no excuse for it. A lot of time it turns out to be alcohol. It's not the best. It's a bit of a catalyst for, alcohol makes an arsehole even into a much bigger arsehole.
Yeah.
It's got that sort of ability. So
I wouldn't know, man.
No. But it makes a goodo even more of a goodo. So it kind of it can work for you and against you.
True
but
story.
no time for unruly packs. I hope they ban the oak forever.
Yeah, no, I hope so too, man. We don't need that. But luckily that was about the only sort of real story South African wise this week. Looking at aircraft manufacturers, as always, Boeing's been big in the news following a preliminary trade deal with the Trump administration. This is a big one and a good one with some positive spins. China's now lifted their ban on the Boeing aircraft deliveries. So they've seemed to have shaken hands, and Boeing shouldn't be too impacted by that whole deal now.
Good.
Which I'm hoping translates into the prices in Apple products not being hiked either. But that's a different story. And then the last big...
Not that you and I can afford any more new Apple product.
No, not by a long shot yet. But The last big story to dominate the news this week was those that can probably afford a few brand new Apple products will be anybody who works for Emirates.
Yeah.
Huh?
Big news.
Yeah.
Emirates have sort of started this trend, of giving back to the employees when they do well. And it's no insignificant amount. It's massive. And it must have a huge uplifting impact on their staff. It's quite an amazing thing. And I mean, if you're a pilot there and you're sitting on, what did they get, 6 months or?
It's close to, it was 22 weeks, so 5.5 months worth of bonus pay.
Yeah.
Profit share from the $5.2 billion profit that Emirates made.
Yeah.
But yeah, 5.5 months worth of tax-free salary.
That's huge.
Hey, that'll put a smile on your diary.
No, that's huge. And I think that it has, we already know it has set a trend, because it's almost a decision maker in terms of, first of all, if you've got an opportunity to go to one of two airlines. For me, if Emirates is either of those, you're going to Emirates at this stage because you hope, that they'll continue to make a profit, and you're likely to get a cut of that. And I tell you what, if you're flying very long, hard days like they do, and you work your ass off like they do, a lot of east-west stuff.
Yeah.
But every sort of year or so, there's a paycheck like that. Suddenly those days are just a little bit shorter, and you a little bit more pro-company and moan a little bit less. And it must improve the whole sort of ethos there.
Everything's way more palatable. The sacrifices that you make for being an expat there, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But amazing that this comes out at the same time that they announced that over the next 2 years they're looking to attract another 1,500 new pilots into the airline.
Yeah.
So, if that ever had anyone on the cusp of should I, shouldn't I, it's a nice nudge in the right direction as to why one should consider joining the airline.
Yeah, I don't see how it cannot be a serious. It's such a high quality airline as it is. Never mind, obviously, with the sort of profit sharing that's going on. I think it's awesome. I think it's awesome for everyone there involved. Particularly awesome for the pilots that are on a good salary there in the first place. It's not like they're that salary is good, and then to get that whack on top, man, it must take the pressure off a lot of people. And I'm very jealous.
Yeah, I know, it sorts a few things out, that's for sure.
Put a dent in the old credit card repayments.
Especially when you get to convert it back to the good old randela,
Yes.
You've got Forex and you're putting it into our currency. It's I had a cousin come out from the UK last week. She's been living there for a couple of years, and she visited us for 2 weeks. Yeah, with her pounds, she came over with 20 pounds and was like a millionaire.
Yeah.
Ridiculous.
Can have a nice holiday.
Yeah. And then the last thing, topic to end off the news that I've collected this week is just looking at overall airline operational performance. British Airways has reported a significant improvement in its operational performance over the past year, and it credits this to a multi-million-dollar investment in artificial intelligence, AI. For this improvement, stating that it has transformed them into one of the most on-time carriers globally. And the reason I end off with that one is I know that that's it's a hot topic with you at the moment. AI is doing its thing at the moment, and obviously starting to show its benefits as far as airline operations and implementation there goes.
Yeah, I think we've scraped the surface of what AI is going to do to aviation. Whether or not it comes along and takes pilot jobs away in this sort of phase, I don't think so. But there's going to be a big shift, and I'm sure a lot of the news stories coming up are going to be about how AI is being implemented in the airline, and how they're able to cut a lot of fat, I suppose, but also just trim the error rate. And as like going back to that Newark thing, I mean, all those delays, all that inefficiency is due to a system, and that system is outdated. So you can't tell me that Trump's idea of his new system is not going to be powered by Grok or something like that, because I'm pretty sure that it is. And
No, it's coming, man. I mean,
it'll happen.
especially in this industry where, decisions need to be made sometimes with a bit of haste, with a lot of inputs, and the margins that are at stake are huge. It's a kind of like a necessary evil.
Yeah. Very nice job at the news, by the way.
Yeah, look.
If you didn't notice, Ryan did all the news, and part of it is because I'm going to be bringing in a new segment to the pod, and for that to happen, Ryan's going to take care of the news side of things, which I'm kind of looking forward to. I know he is as well, because it's a new challenge there for his side. Ryan's always got his ear to the ground with the news. He's always the one telling me, hey, did you see what happened here? My mate of mine told me this and that. And so, he's the right guy for the news. And I'm going to be diving into something on a weekly basis. And I might as well introduce it properly. Welcome to the very first Beyond the Flight Deck segment of the pod. Beyond the Flight Deck is a natural evolution, I suppose, of the Bryan Advisory, which was popular in its heyday, I suppose. And the advisory was more about giving a little tech tip, a life hack or something like that. But this segment is going to be dedicated to helping experienced professionals, particularly pilots, leverage their unique skills to build a future that is both secure and scalable, ultimately giving your time back. That security and scalability comes from our core values, by the way, and our core values for the pod. I'll give a bit of a story here, and then I'll bring things back, if you don't mind, Paul, to make this all make sense to our listeners, because we need a bit of historical guidance here for the story to kind of make sense. But obviously, if you think about your job as an airline pilot, and I say that because a lot of the people we have listening to the pod today are either currently flying for an airline or a charter company or retired. But none of you would disagree, I'm sure, that the job of an airline pilot is very linear. It relies on operating from point A to point B, and you get paid for your time. If it's an 8-hour day, that's it. You get paid for that to do the job safely, and it's worked very well for a very long time, and it will continue to work. There's no doubt about that. But the world is changing, and I'm sure you've seen in the news over the past few weeks, months, the rise of AI agents now.
Yeah, it's that's dominating the podcast feed. There's actually so much noise around that.
It is, and I think a lot of people pick up the news and they read about these things and they go, okay, yeah, I understand, that's a new cool thing, and off you go. If it doesn't particularly interest you, then you let it pass you by. I'll learn about it later type of attitude. But there are some incredibly sophisticated AI agents out there. And before I go too deep into what they are, I need this to make a little bit of sense for everyone. So I'm going to take everyone back to 2019. I've actually been through a bit of a period of sort of retrospection of late. I decided, I want to take this podcast to the next level, as you know, and I've been looking at ways and means to do that. And I've spent a lot of time developing sort of what I'd like to call a elegant business model around the podcast. And it's always been focused in one specific direction, but was always very difficult for me to... The products and that were available didn't quite align with what I wanted. And obviously, with the rise now of these AI agents, things have changed. So let's go back 2019. It was actually July 2019. There was a podcast with Naval Ravikant on JRE, the Joe Rogan Experience. And that podcast, if it wasn't for that podcast, this podcast would not exist. Because when I heard Naval speaking to Joe about scalability and leverage and the ability to multiply your time, I had never heard of this concept of scale and leverage. I just about it, but you didn't think about it from a business perspective. And that was a very important sort of part of my life when I heard that, because the very next day I jumped on my motorbike and I rode to sort of where your neck of the woods is, and there was a Starbucks there, and I sat down and I had a brand new moleskin notebook and a pen and my earpods in, and I listened to that entire podcast with Naval, and I wrote everything down, and I left there knowing that I was going to start a podcast. And the podcast at that time, and I'll prove this by my notes, because I've still got all those notes. It was going to be called From the Flight Deck. Okay, it was going to be called From the Flight Deck. Hence this sort of name now going beyond the flight deck, which also kind of makes a bit of sense, but it's cooler if you know the backstory. And it was basically the very next day that I decided, look, I'm going to start a podcast. Why? Because a podcast does have leverage. It scales. We can record a show today, and it might take us a couple of hours of preparation, an hour to do the pod, but then it scales. We go home and people can listen to us while we're at home with our kids or whatever. So it's got a very sort of unique digital framework that we've become used to in this digital sort of age. And I'd started that pod, and it wasn't long after doing just 2 episodes of the podcast that I realized how valuable it was back then. So we're going right back to the beginning. I then decided to take it one step further with this idea of scaling and digitization. And I created a online course. So it was just one online course on what we call today the Sim Trainer 1 platform. And that online course was a little bit different to the normal aviation courses. It sort of focused more on mindset. It was geared towards sort of younger pilots transitioning to jets and things like that. Sort of mindset, airline pilot concept related. And it started off very slow run. I mean, as you know, put a huge amount of work to get something like that going. And I think I sold 2 of those courses in about 3 months or whatever. And nonetheless, the work was done. It was live and it was available. So it was then doing its thing. Now, if you go back to 2019, it was sort of, it started the pod. We had a few episodes down. I had the Sim Trainer 1 platform, and my wife, being Greek, we decided to go to Greece to see her family on holiday. So it was before kiddies and things like that. It was also before a pretty major pandemic hit the world. Just before, actually. It was in September 2019. So I've got what I call my sort of Mykonos moment, which is sort of, I think, based on, without trying to get too corny here, where my why comes from. And I remember this extremely vividly, and I've written this down many times. It's been incredibly important to me, this entire moment. And I was sitting on the beach with an Aperol Spritz in my hand next to my wife, and my phone was beeping, but like consistently, going, like when it goes. And I just assumed that this was our old company, SA Express, sending me roster changes and probably, cancellation of flights and things like that, because things weren't so hot with the airline at that stage. So I thought, like, I'm on holiday. I'm not going to go too deep into that. So stayed on the beach. My wife ended up sort of going to get another frappe or something, and I thought, let me check my emails, my messages. When I picked up my phone, I had sold, and I'm not saying this to brag, I'm saying this so that the story kind of aligns with where I'm going. I sold that day, it was $2,600 worth of online courses on that day. And that moment when I looked at my phone, it changed my whole life, my whole perspective of things changed, because I was sitting on a beach with my family, drinking a cocktail, but I was earning money. And you know from me, I've spoken about this many times, it flicked a synapse in my brain, sort of, it was rewired there and then. And what happened after that was pretty straightforward. I mean, the pandemic came along and everything got shut down. We lost our jobs. And what got me through that period and why I didn't rush back to go and fly was because I had those online courses. Those online courses were generating an income. They were providing me with a bit of security. And that's how I got through. So for me, this value of this digital course, this scalable business, was massive, and it has been ever since. So a lot of my interest, and I think a lot of time people wonder, what the hell do you guys actually do? And other than being heavily involved with simulator training and the sim center, a lot of my focus has been on the digitization side, and obviously the pod falls nicely into that space. So just carrying on, just trying to make the story make a bit more sense, going a bit further back. When everything got going again, there was obviously the obvious opportunity, better go do what you do and go get back into the flight deck. But I just couldn't. I couldn't, not because I didn't want to fly. Aviation is my life, it's my life, been around me my whole life. But I just couldn't, because that switch had been flicked, and there was no going back. And a lot of my focus has been on, how can I make something that enables other people to experience that Mykonos moment? And that's the direction of Beyond the Flight Deck. Now, there's a concept here of sort of transcending your time into space, and I made up this sort of corny phrase. It's an interstellar echo. Okay, so meaning, I love the movie Interstellar, and this being an echo, it echoes into space. You build it once, sell it twice. It's in space. Now, why on earth are we talking about this on a podcast that is geared towards speaking to pilots, aviation enthusiasts, and the aviation industry at large? And it's simple. The rise of AI agents now has changed everything.
Absolutely.
And believe you me when I say it, that the world that we're in today will never be the same again. And I've never been able to get this sort of point across before this technology was available, because I'm not going to go and encourage a pilot at Emirates to say, hey, look, throw away that 6-month salary and go and start a little online course. You won't regret it. That's not the point. The point now is these AI agents have gotten so good, and they're so advanced, and the technology out there is so amazing. First of all, most of it's free. Like 90% of it is free. And so powerful that if you can articulate your idea, you can either turn it into a scalable business of your own. You can do what you want with it, as long as you can articulate the idea. And I've come up with a bit of a 5-step blueprint on how you can do this. I'll make it available there in the notes. Go out and check it out, and you'll understand the direction that I'm sort of taking this. And over the course of the next few weeks, or at least going forward, I'll go through each of those 5 points. But to give you a little quick overview, just for yourself, Ryan, if you think about it like this way, my 5 ideas here. So, number 1, you can ignite a vision with AI. Go into Gemini, Claude, whatever you want, and start talking to it. I want to start a business. I want to do a side hustle. I want to, whatever it is, start a conversation. Get you an idea. Number 2, validate the idea. You can use something like the Score app to actually validate your idea. I'll show you how to do that. 3, you can consolidate your information through Notebook LM. Okay. Did a video a couple of weeks ago on Notebook LM. It's an unbelievable tool. For pilots, that tool is just ridiculous. Throw your FCOM, your QRH, everything in there. You've got a brain. You can ask it anything. It'll direct you to the right page. It's crazy. But you can consolidate with Notebook LM. You can build it with an agent. There's lots of them around. There's some that are quite expensive, but they're cheap ones. And what I mean by build it with an agent, well, you take your idea that you can articulate, that maybe you got assisted with by a normal AI, just a large language model at the beginning. And you can take that information and put it into an AI agent, and you can say, build this for me. And it will build it for you. And it will build it for you in less time than what it takes you to fly from Johannesburg to Cape Town.
Yeah.
All right. And then the 5th thing, point number 5, is you can now amplify what you've gone and built. And by amplifying it, I don't mean getting on something like anything short form like Instagram and things like that a lot of pilots aren't really interested in. The way I see things like Instagram and TikTok and that rubbish, it's a little bit like fast food. It's processed information. It lets people know, if we post something on Instagram, it lets people know we're still going. It adds no value. I know that's my opinion, but I've seen it firsthand. It's the opinion of some far more intelligent people than me. But you can amplify your product there through YouTube. Longer form content, people want to hear about it, see it, they want to touch it, feel it, and associate themselves with the person that is actually presenting this thing. So that's my sort of 5-step that you can go and check it out. The link there will be in the show notes. And what I'm encouraging you to do here is just not take this historical side of history lightly. Where we are today is a complete watershed moment, because these agents are going to change a huge amount of sort of common business that's around. You're going to see, certainly for a period, you're going to see a bit of unemployment and that going on. But why is this important? Why am I presenting this to pilots in particular? Pilots have very unique skills. Very good at sort of project management, risk management, and basically managing an environment that's in front of you. You're not physically flying all the time. You're managing a whole set of systems and making sure they run in harmony. Well, when you build a digital product with an agent, that's all you do. That's all you do. You sitting down, you're the manager, and you directing this agent to code for you, to link it to something else, to tie it in with a different environment, to speak to a different product. You are the manager. And it's very pilot orientated. It's you sitting back, and for a pilot to do this is going to be a piece of chips. Now, why I say it is because you don't have to quit your job. You don't have to. If you're restoring a VW Beetle in your house, at your home, you could turn that into a digital business that's worth a lot of money. And if you're not sure how, just go ask AI. Get a general idea. How can I turn this hobby of mine into a business? You've seen the guys with their camera work. I mean, Mark Dutton with his shots of insects and that. I mean, 10 years ago, you'd say, enthusiasts and things like that. There are markets out there that you don't even think exist. And my point is, my point here is not to encourage anyone to say, stop doing what you're doing. Don't. Flying is one of the best jobs you'll ever do. But now we've entered into an era where you don't have to choose. You can run. Let me refrain. You can manage your own scalable, leveraged digital business so that your impact can go beyond the flight deck.
Absolutely.
Hence the name of the segment of the show, the my direction that I'm pushing, and obviously I think I'm the one to hopefully guide you guys and girls in that direction. It's a passion thing for me. It has been for a very long time, and I believe that this historical moment is real. It is massive. It is going to change everything, and people are going to need guidance on where to turn. And instead of looking at it with skepticism, you can look at this with opportunity. And like I say, I don't think there's a better sort of time for pilots, because this is right up their alley in terms of how they manage systems and navigate turbulence and fix problems and deal with abnormal items that pop up when you're working with an agent. But once it's running, you can sit back and just let it run, and it might just to be corny, give you that your own sort of Mykonos moment there.
Yeah, look, from my experience with a lot of guys I used to fly with, a lot of them are incredibly intelligent and have fascinating hobbies. Turn this into a hobby for a while you try it. But one thing that's appealing while you're talking to these AI agents as well is that you need to approach it with some sort of logic. And obviously pilots are good at applying logic as well.
Yeah,
sequencing things, and that's where
sequence of events.
Yeah, you've got to sequence things, see it out, map it out. Yeah, it's very interesting. It's an awesome topic, and I think there is value and opportunity there. Absolutely,
there's massive value. There's going to be opportunity for a while. I think it literally is so easy to build, and once you've got a formula, which I've got, you won't stop building. I've been playing around with it for a long time.
Yeah.
And I actually built to try and explain, I thought, what difficulty am I going to have on the show here? To try and understand scale, I thought the best thing I can do is actually go and build an app. And I built an app that explains the difference between something that's linear and something that's scalable. And go and check out my app. It's simple. You don't have to, it's free, of course, but you can actually log what you're doing on a daily basis. Is it something linear? In other words, if we got an instructor meeting coming up, then it's going to be in person, 2 hours. It's going to be, you're never going to get those 2 hours back. Not that we need to get every bit of time back, but I'd like to get it back if I could.
Yeah.
And this podcast we will get back, because it's taken, a couple of hours, a few hours of prep. But we're going to 10x, 20x the podcast. They're going to be hopefully a few thousand people that listen and watch the videos. And if you add up all that time, it's going to be a hell of a lot more than the 4 hours we took to produce it. So that's the difference between something linear and scalable. Now you can log all those things. Go on to, I called it future-proof your time. And go and see how much are you scaling and how much are you using linear time. And a lot of people still operate in that linear time environment. And the shift has now happened where I don't think you sort of really have the choice anymore. You need to scale certain things and use it as a bit of a guide. But yeah, as an example, that application that I put together was done in an afternoon with an idea and a thought and something that I like. And this is where this name, you'll hear a bit more about this interstellar echo comes. And I've sort of tried to make your own galaxy there. So you've got, if we do a whole lot of podcasts, your galaxies you'll see in your space there are different colors, so that all the podcasts will be sort of orange. And then if you make maybe an online course or something, it'll come up blue or whatever. And the aim here is to have a lot of these planets in your galaxy that are working for you while you are spending your linear time with the people that you love the most. Does that make sense?
No,
So
look,
if you can scale your time, you can spend your linear time doing either what you love or spend it with the people that you love the most, that you don't want to get back in terms of scale. You want to get your business back in scale. You want to get your income, your monetization must be scaled. Not necessarily the time with your family. And that's what this is all about. So go and check out your that app of mine, Multiply Your Time or Future-Proof Your Time. And a lot of it, wisdom they're taken from Dan Martell, Buy Back Your Time, and obviously tying it in with Naval's podcast with Joe on leverage.
Yeah. That's very cool. I mean, nobody loves that concept more than me, because you know what I'm all about. The more time I can get to still and be with my family, the better.
Exactly.
That's been my thing ever since I started breathing, and that ain't going to change. So, concepts like this, perfect.
Yep. We'll help you build digital systems that extend your impact beyond the flight deck. Have a lovely weekend, everyone. Thanks,
Catch you
pal.
later. Cheers, bud.
Bye for now.